Hi everyone, my name is Marcus and you're watching the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. Today I'm very lucky to be able to show you the Kessil AP9X. I've had this light running on my tank now for a couple of weeks since I moved my tank to its new location away from my fixed hanging fixture in the old spot. Big thanks to Ard from Addicted to Fish for loaning me this light. It's one of the only AP9Xs in Australia right now. But more are on the way, and I have a feeling they're going to be here in the country in time for Christmas. So yeah, you can start dropping hints now for anyone who's looking for one of these for a Christmas present. The first thing I noticed about this light when unboxing was that it was firstly a lot smaller and sleeker than I expected. The images I'd seen online just don't quite do it justice. The light is beautifully thin and a lot lighter than you would think, and it just looks great from every angle. This is not a light you hide in a hood, but rather a statement in its own right. As we've come to expect from Kessil, after the immensely popular A360X, the quality is second to none. I've physically seen almost every light there is on the market, and I'm not exaggerating when I say Kessil's product aesthetic and design just leaves everyone else in the dust. No one is even close. The best analogy I can give is that the Kessil is like a new iPhone is sitting next to a Nokia brick from the 90s. Every line, seam, fastener, detail has been thought about, customized, designed from the ground up. You won't find any OEM or stock modules or generic aluminium heatsinks just bolted to the back of the product. You won't find badly tapped holes with generic plastic plugs or screws. Even the power cable and its safety locking mechanism is custom. This thing is definitely a beauty. As the Wi-Fi controller is now built in, big plus, and the light weighs so little, it's mounted with just a single arm and the single power cable is completely hidden, making for one of the cleanest pole mounting options possible. I've reviewed the Wi-Fi controller before, the standalone one that you plug into the A360X. Subscribe and check out my other videos if you want more information on that one. But essentially the built-in Wi-Fi controller in the AP9X is exactly the same, uses the same app, and has the same awesome plug-and-play setup where you simply scan a QR code and you're good to go from there. But all of that matters very little if it's not good at what it's supposed to do. And that's to grow coral, show off our reef tanks, and make them look amazing. So, well, let's talk about spread, spectrum, and par. The AP9X is a dual puck design. However, there are changes to the LED matrix and optics when compared to the A360X. Essentially, these changes boil down to two things. The LED matrix is condensed, meaning the 55 individual LED diodes in the puck are closer together. What this means is that the color mixing should in theory be more pronounced and the peak brightness from each of the two pucks should be higher. The other significant change is that there is an inbuilt oval-shaped reflector that surrounds the lens of each puck. The A360X does not have this, which results in a super wide spread, however ultimately weaker par. While the A360X does have a narrow beam reflector attachment, which I personally run and can achieve similar things, the fact is that the AP9X has this built in, and I think that's the right move by Kessil. It makes the overall package of the light much more complete, especially with the Wi-Fi controller built in as well. Now, I mentioned that the reflector is oval shaped, and that's very important. The AP9X has a rectangular spread, which is wider from left to right and narrower from front to back. This suits the vast majority of tank styles out there, which tend to be rectangular. Sorry for those of you with a square reef tank, but you're certainly in the minority. This spread means that a single AP9X will comfortably cover a tank my size, being about 3 foot, and I would think that even up to a 4-foot tank, as long as it's not SPS dominant on the sides, would be fine as well. For a full SPS dominant tank, 4 foot or larger, I'd recommend adding additional supplementary lighting, potentially 2 of these or there are some other options. I'll talk more on this later. Let's talk more about the next major element of reef tank lighting, and that's spectrum. You should know by now that Kessil's spectrum is well proven and, very importantly, very well trusted. That trust has been hard earned by Kessil over a long period of time, and many hundreds of successful reef tanks handing the reins over to what Kessil calls Kessil logic. Essentially, it's a system where you only have two settings, that being how bright the light is and the temperature of the light on a scale of white to blue. With that, Kessil logic does all of the tweaking and adjustments to all of the over 55 individual LED diodes to ensure that the actual spectrum being produced is still appropriate and optimal for coral growth, no matter the individual reefer's preference for blue or white. The approach is excellent in my opinion, as many reefers can be their own worst enemy when presented with a control app and lights with 8 different sliders that they can freely tweak with no knowledge whatsoever on whether what they're doing will be beneficial for coral or not. There are hidden advanced settings within the app for 3 additional channels that you can tweak with the X series Kessils, those being a UV channel, a red and a green channel. However, the general consensus seems to be to set the red to 20, the green to 0 or very close to 0, and gradually boost UV up to maximum if you're trying to really bring out fluorescence in SPS. However, it should be noted that the standard Kessil spectrum is absolutely not lacking in near UV and absolutely makes corals fluoresce a lot. I personally run the majority of my peak intensity of the day with a color set to 20, which is mostly blue. This for me is where I feel the tank looks its absolute best. However, the whole point of Kessil logic is that you can tune it to where you visually like it, knowing that the spectrum is optimal for coral growth. In the AP9X, the spectrum should be identical to that of the A360X, as the nature of the 55 LED matrix is the same. It's just more dense, which improves the overall brightness and has some different optics and reflectors which would impact spread and color mixing. The optimal mounting height for an AP9X is 10 inches or 25.5 centimeters above the water surface. This gives about 270 par around the edges and 500 par in the middle, according to BRS TV's awesome Investigates testing series. Check that out if you want to see a full breakdown on the numbers of the AP9X. The shimmer that Kessil offers has always been the standard by which everyone else is compared, and that's no different here, of course, with deep shimmer lines across the tank that give a heap of movement and none of that disco ball color separation, fuzzy individual breakdown of colors that you can sometimes see with LEDs with poor quality optics. So it's a great light with everything we love about Kessil. But who is it really for, and why wouldn't you just buy 2 A360Xs, which on the surface might seem to be a more flexible option? Well, first let's go through the obvious reasons that you might choose an AP9X instead. The Wi-Fi controller is built in and not an optional accessory. It's a dual puck light that can be mounted with a single arm. 2 A360Xs requires 2 mounting arms. Because it's a single fixture and the controller is built in, there's no need for K-link cables, and there's a single power cable and brick for the light, so overall a lot less cable clutter and a more clean installation. If you have a rectangular tank of 4 foot and under, this light has the perfect back to front and left to right spread to cover your entire tank footprint. The reflectors are built in, and in my opinion, the reflectors are a must-have accessory for an A360X, so as a result, that's less extras that you need to buy. Finally, the AP9X is cheaper than 2 A360Xs, especially when you include the extra accessories that you likely won't have to buy with an AP9X. There are, however, some downsides. The biggest being obviously that you don't have the flexibility to move the pucks further apart or have them angled separately. There is also the same issue that all single point light sources suffer from, which is shadowing. Shadowing is not really an issue for LPS systems or new SPS systems. However, once you have large SPS acro colonies or really densely packed ones like mine, shadowing can be a problem. I addressed this on my tank when it was in its original location by running the DX18 hybrid fixture, which adds front and back T5s to complement the Kessils. This provided that long multi-point diffusion of light from all sides, and this really helps with shadowing immensely. Though T5s do dull the color rendition of Kessils somewhat, and that crispness is lost a bit. I've particularly noticed that since moving the tank here and not having the T5s, it does just look that, it's like the sharpness and the brightness of the tank has just been turned up. If you want to supplement spotlight style LEDs like the Kessil, there are many other ways to do it beyond T5s. There's a lot of LED strips on the market now, like Orfec bars, Vitamin E wings, Reef Bright strips being among them. Or, while this is a very expensive approach, if you want a no compromises solution, just add A360Xs angled from the sides to complement the AP9X as your corals grow. Maybe not an option for everyone, but certainly a no compromises approach. One thing to note is that if you pair an AP9X with A360Xs, you don't need a controller for the A360Xs. They can all share the controller built into the AP9X as long as they're connected with K-Link cables. The AP9X has 2 K-Link ports and 2 0 to 10 volt ports for controlling up to 4 other lights by itself. However, if you further daisy chain off the A360Xs, you can essentially add as many as you would like via additional K-Link cables. There are no practical limits as long as you daisy chain everything together. Or add an extra controller anywhere they're not directly connected, such as if you're running 2 tanks and they're not next to each other. So that brings me to my biggest and most common criticism of Kessil, and that is the price. They are an expensive light, that's for sure. However, they're also a premium light, and this kind of quality and the R&D design behind a product like this certainly would not come cheap. Ultimately, for most people, however, if you're looking for a bargain or the absolutely best price per par or some other metric like that, you're unlikely to choose Kessil. However, if you like what you see and you want the look and the features and the confidence that the lighting is top tier and set and forget for the optimal spectrum for your coral, then for many, the choice to go Kessil is very easy to justify. Still to date, in my opinion, the color rendition and shimmer from Kessil has no equal. So again, big shout out to Addicted to Fish for loaning me this unit while I'm in this limbo stage of having my tank halfway across the room and I don't have access to the ceiling mounted lights that I would normally be running. It's been fantastic to test out the AP9X, and I'm absolutely in love with the way that it looks over the tank and the way that it makes my corals pop. Certainly something to consider for the lighting that I'll be running on my new tank. Let's wait and see what I end up going with there. If you like this video and you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment down below. My name is Marcus, and you've been watching the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. Bye for now.